My dudes, what is up? Welcome to my tiny house. Welcome to my channel. My name is Stacy. I usually make videos about all sorts of things pertaining to tiny house living, and I think the tiny house movement has become very synonymous with the minimalist movement. I have a lot of issues with the word minimalist in general, and I don't use it to describe myself for, I think, obvious reasons. If you look at me, when it comes to my sense of style, both how I adorn myself and even how I decorate my home, I would kind of describe myself as a maximalist, as much as the minimalist aesthetic is very pleasing. It's just not really my thing. In this video, I want to kind of discuss what minimalism is or is not, and I think that's part of the problem as to why this topic is so nuanced and complicated, because it's very subjective and it means a lot of different things to different people. I also want to talk about how a tiny house kind of forces you to have a more minimalist mindset when it comes to your consumption habits. And that's, the term that I prefer to use over on my Instagram is mindful consumption as the antidote to mindless consumption. Also, I'm gonna address the elephant in the room, which is the topic of privilege and how minimalism tends to neglect certain socioeconomic and social factors, and it feels very exclusive or not inclusive enough, or just makes a lot of people roll their eyes, and I totally get it. I hope you find this, a more refreshing and alternative take on this subject than you will usually see in discourse online. So let's get into it. So when I was preparing for this video, I was trying to find a definition of minimalism or minimalist to kind of give us like a reference point. The only definition that I found that was applicable is being or offering no more than what is required or essential. So that's kind of interesting already, because what is essential? Food, water, shelter. I mean, is a mattress even essential? I guess you could sleep directly on the floor. If we only refine ourselves down to what is purely required or essential for our survival, sorry, I'm not interested. Like, that's not the kind of lifestyle that I want to live. Though we do see examples of this like extreme minimalism, like Rob Greenfield, I think his name is, who like lives with whatever he can carry in his backpack. But obviously, being a living minimalist lies on a spectrum of sorts, and some people are going to be a little more extreme than others. Living in 240 square feet like I do, I don't have a whole lot of room for things. So I did have to reduce the already pretty low amount of things that I owned to begin with in order to fit everything in this home. So a definition that I liked a little bit more, or at least that I want to draw upon here, is a technique, as in music, literature, or design, that is characterized by extreme sparseness and simplicity. And that kind of got me thinking, what is drawing people in to minimalism? And I think it really comes down to the aesthetic. When we're talking about minimalism in interior design especially, or, in style as well, like so many minimalists have like a capsule wardrobe that is mostly dominated by neutral tones. I'm actually standing in front of my kind of embarrassing, this door closes when it's cold, but when there's direct sun on it, it's expanding a little bit and it's not properly closing. So if you notice that the door is always open, that would be why. But what you're seeing here is all of the clothing that I can fit in this house, but I do actually have more clothes in storage. I do have some space to hang things here. I have 3 drawers down here, and then these baskets have accessories. I have like 1 purse I have one more purse hanging by the front door. I have 3 pairs of shoes. I have a much smaller closet than most people do. But I'm still able to express myself in a way that feels unique and authentic to me. So that like neutral aesthetic that we so often associate with minimalism, I think it's very appealing. You can look at that and be like, if my work from home setup looked more like this instead of like this, then maybe I would be able to focus more on my work. Or if my kitchen looked like this instead of like this, then maybe I would enjoy the process of cooking more because all the tools that I need are like easily within grasp. You know, maybe a capsule wardrobe is appealing to you because you don't want to spend the time trying to put together an outfit in the morning. And if you can just grab any top and any bottom and they always go well together, maybe that's very appealing to you. I think people are also really drawn to this trend of like decluttering videos or like spring cleaning with me videos. There's something very satisfying to see like somebody purge all of their things and make space and having this spaciousness. Another big draw to the minimalist movement is its intersection with the sustainable living movement. A big influencer in this space is Shelby or Shelbizzle on YouTube. She describes herself as an eco-minimalist. So she talks about her experience as going from a very hyper consumerist, materialist, embedded in that culture in America, and how she's kind of trying to counteract that and just buy less things, but very specifically in the intent to reduce her carbon footprint, to produce less waste. And then another category that I see is more from a financial standpoint. So they're trying to pay off debt that they have. It might be credit card debt, student loan debt, finding a way to refine your budget so that you're not buying things in excess and you're able to put that towards paying off debts and having more financial freedom. So I think that dovetails really well into the elephant in the room that I was addressing earlier. Is minimalism just for rich people? Is it just for people who have an abundance or an excess of and are trying to comb those layers back and, you know,
get back to the essence of what is essential?
I do understand the eye rolling, the kind of like, oh, of course, these privileged, you know, wealthy, mostly white folks who, you know, grew up middle class or even upper middle class, who always had their basic needs met, you know, had a garage and a basement full of, let's face it, crap that they never used, they never enjoyed, but just kept buying and buying and buying. Now they're trying to like downsize. I too grew up in this hyper consumerist culture where we worshipped celebrities for having giant walk-in closets of makeup and shoes, and, you know, shows like Cribs and Pimp My Ride were really popular. And, you know, materialism is such a huge pillar of American or, you know, Canadian, North American society. It's such a huge part of our culture. And, you know, I was having this conversation with someone on my Instagram account who's from St. Lucia, and, you know, he was saying that he appreciates the creativity of, you know, people designing their own tiny homes and coming up with these innovative ideas for storage and, you know, beds that like fold out of the ceiling and stuff, and that's really cool. But, you know, where he lives, everyone lives tiny because nobody has a 3-story house with a garage and all that stuff, right? So the idea of someone having a bookshelf that's just full of decorative sculptures or knickknacks or whatever, and being like,
oh, well, you know, I need to focus on what brings me joy, and when I get rid of that bookshelf, all the time that I used to spend every weekend dusting that bookshelf, I can now spend having quality time with my family.
I can understand why some people would look at that and be like, okay, well, can't relate. I think we need to just address that a lot of people who are downsizing, who are decluttering, have this immense privilege to begin with. But I don't think that makes it any less interesting, because none of us choose where we were born, when we were born. So a lot of us were just born into a privileged situation. You know, that doesn't mean we've never had struggles. That doesn't mean we've never had precarious financial situations. Maybe your parents, you know, had a pretty stable job and then they lost that job. And then you had this period of time where you remember your family was very financially stressed and maybe you had to take on a part-time job to help pay the bills. I think the whole idea of materialism is to show off to others, to make yourself seem more desirable to others. In some cases, you know, if you grew up in poverty and now you're doing okay, it's a way to demonstrate, like, look at how far I've gone, look at how successful I am now because I can afford to buy nice things. Even if you put yourself in a lot of debt or you have to take out a really big loan to pay for that car, that you can show off to others, right? So this is why I prefer the phrase mindful consumption instead of minimalism. And let me give you an example of what I mean. Obviously, I really like makeup. And in the early 2010s, I really got into the subgenre on YouTube of, you know, beauty vloggers. And I think a lot of them felt this pressure to always be putting out new reviews of new products. They always had to have the latest eyeshadow palette, the latest lipstick colors. It wasn't so much about the artistry of the actual makeup they were doing, and it was a lot of reviews of products. It started to kind of really bother me because I don't really care what's trendy. I don't care what the latest fad is with like highlighters or, you know, glossy skin or whatever. Like, I just want to wear what I like and what I find interesting and unique. Okay, one thing I'll confess, I get almost all of my makeup secondhand from my sister, who has a little bit of a makeup addiction. And every Christmas she brings like a bunch of palettes. She just has like piles of them. I definitely had a problem with lipstick, and I did cut it in half at least, so I do still have some funky colors that I enjoy playing around with. But yeah, there was a lot of them where like, do I really need like 3 different shades of nudes with slightly different subtle undertones that like nobody else is gonna notice? It really comes down to like, are you even using this thing? And that perfectly segues to my next topic that I want to talk about, which is I see a lot of gatekeeping in this space, and I even find myself doing it every once in a while. When I was, you know, doing a little bit of research for this video, I came across this vlogger who, he's also like a photographer and does video production like professionally. And he had this whole closet with his photography gear. Like, so many lenses and dongles and contraptions, and he opened up this suitcase with a drone, and it's like one of multiple drones that he owns, and he's like, I bought this drone and I never use it. And, you know, I'm watching this and I'm like, how can you describe yourself as a minimalist when you have something that you bought that you've never used? But, you know, that brings me back again to the idea of just being obsessed with like the number of things that you have. For example, you know, I said earlier, I only have 3 pairs of shoes. I could, if I just want to fixate on the number, I could buy a new pair of boots and donate an old pair of boots and just keep doing that cycle over and over and over again. But to me, that's still not really applying those minimalist techniques or mindset, because minimalism is not just a constant cycle of decluttering. It's asking yourself mindfully, do I really need this new thing? Can I repair or repurpose something that I already own? Can I just be content with this thing that I already own instead? Planning ahead for certain purchases is something that has really helped me over the years become more aware of when I was buying things just because I wanted that dopamine hit of getting a new thing. Even buying things online, I think just almost becomes like too easy. It's so easy to just hit that checkout button while you're, drunk or high in your couch watching TV, and you're that mindlessness, right? That's what I'm talking about. You were just kind of bored, scratching an itch. Instead of buying anything on impulse, I will bookmark it. I will save it for later. I will put it on a wish list. I have multiple shopping lists on my phone. I have like a grocery list. I have a to-do list for the house. I prepare for them. I save for them. I budget for them. I do research. And I try very hard to keep myself to, if I'm going to go to the drugstore to buy a tube of mascara, that is all I'm going to buy. There are so many little things that we can enjoy that don't involve any materials at all. Going outside, spending time with your friends, dancing in your underwear when no one's looking. If you're an extreme minimalist and all you carry is a backpack with the most essential items, and one of those items is a cell phone or a laptop or some other device that has access to an internet connection, you can still keep yourself distracted all the time, right? We can all get lost mindlessly scrolling on whatever your social media platform of preference is, or reading the news or whatever it is, and distracting yourself from what actually makes you feel fulfilled, what actually makes you feel creative, what makes you feel like you're being challenged or like you're contributing in a positive way to the world that you want to create. So I'm sorry to be getting like really philosophical, esoteric here, but that's really like in
this capitalist society that we live in,
the ways in which we spend our money really do reflect our perceptions about how we relate to one another, how we build community, how we form connections, how we perceive our value and our worth. And I would like to connect my value and my worth more to how I treat my fellow human beings, how I treat this earth and the creatures that live in it, as opposed to some frivolous things that don't really matter as much. But hypocrite on the same token, and I like to look at pretty things, it does make me feel happy to enjoy art in all of its various forms. So this topic is complicated, and I hope that I, brought up different perspectives, some refreshing perspectives that maybe you haven't seen discussed as much online. And if you know anyone who is going on a minimalist journey of their own, or who is constantly rolling their eyes at this whole minimalist conversation, maybe share this video with them. If you're interested more in like the decluttering or downsizing journey and you want to see a whole video about that, leave a comment down below. I love reading your comments and having real ass conversations with you guys. Brutally honest, straightforward conversations with you guys on this stuff. So thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. I really appreciate you guys being here, and that's all for now, folks. Take it easy. Oh my god, did I have lipstick on my teeth that whole time?